We wanted to talk about narcissism and religion and our journey and experiences with these two areas because we both have personal experiences with our family and others, and we are students of psychology, so we reflect on our tendencies and the impact of how the previous generation has had on our mental health. Myself first, my narcissistic tendencies. Everyone has this selfish gene, but to a spectrum, I feel like sometimes I will do a selfish act and question myself, is this narcissistic behavior? And I will have that doubt. And I know people will say, as long as you are aware that you might be, being a narcissist, you are safe, because a true narcissist would not
be aware of it.
Yes. And would you agree on that?
I believe that there are types of narcissists, and definitely from what I know, we all have some narcissistic traits. Everyone has a little bit, of the dark triad, right? But there are people, like in my observation, there are people that embrace it, So like you fighting against it is already, something good. I also have this kind of behavior. Trying to catch the attention for me, is the hardest one to fight, because sometimes I'm not aware of it, but when I think, well, I was like, maybe that's I'm trying to seek attention. Yeah.
Yes, I feel like it's such a tempting thing because we're supposed to feel good, to want compliments, and we are aware that maybe we are putting on a performance. But so first we need a definition of narcissism that we could operate on, like the function definition, that it affects daily social relationships, a significant impairment with communication and intimacy with you. So I'll use my parents as an example.
Okay.
So my father is a narcissist, conducts conversations, daily conversations, is always about himself and putting others down. His superiority complex, although it may be hard to accept that we want to pour a bucket of cold water over his head to let him see that you're full of shit and you don't know what you're talking about. You're always bullshitting. But that part is okay. We don't have to confront him all the time. Like we can accept him. Oh, he's just like that. He is arrogant and full of himself. But when it matters, when all of this aggregates over time, when we have to live with him and be under this level of pressure in communicating with him, it becomes a burden, and at some critical point we explode and we have just to confront him fully. And when that critical incident happens, he's unable to reverse his psychology or be aware to any degree of what we're trying to tell him. And I think that part is the most frustrating part, is to communicate with him and try to quote unquote help him.
That's really nice experience, Solomon. I did not know about it. I never getting deep about that. I have a similar experience in the code. So for the people that don't know, I came from a code. Yeah, they were quite narcissistic, and I never had a chance to have a conversation like that with the leader of the code. Because I knew that if I had a kind of conversation, he would use that as material to destroy the social relationships that I had. Not just inside, but also outside the code. So, and he was quite manipulative too. You said about definition of narcissism. It's interesting because this week I was watching about 4 types, right? But I think in general is that like grandiosity, lack of a real empathy towards people, just thinking about everything has to do with their self-image. And in the case of this guy, he was always pressing my triggers, and that was the hardest part. He would use like manipulation techniques, kind of like he would use, we were in a mass, and he would use the homily to speak something that just I know that I told him, and no one else's know, and he would use the example as and he did that multiple times in order to make me feel bad. It was kind of like an undirected way to use his power to make people against me without people knowing that they're against me.
So this person, this cult leader, has leverage over social relationships. And since you are maybe born into this, since everybody that has encountered narcissism usually are from their parents, and their first exposure to this is they are born into it, so they're not aware initially of this being NPD. They just don't have the awareness, and once they do, slowly, they know there's something wrong. Many years, but they just don't know what it is, and it's so lonely that nobody openly talks about it. No one has the psychoeducation level to know what is NPD. And my point is, since we're born into it, we have this journey of navigating their tactics, like you mentioned. So I'm curious, how do you navigate or give examples of their tactics?
I thought that, I don't know about you, but at first I thought that the problem was me. I really thought that the problem was me. I still remember like crying again, like saying, oh, I can love the people in the cult. Sometimes I don't feel anything about my parents or people inside there, But after going through therapeutical and real spiritual direction, because we will get to that too, I started to realize that maybe the problem wasn't me. I don't know if you had the same experience.
I'm laughing because it's so true. With the narcissist, you have all the symptoms, but they are the one with the disorder. So it's prime time gaslighting. And since we're kids, their parents, their authority figures, we respect them. We think that it's a filial piety thing, it's a cultural thing to respect. We don't challenge them. We try in adolescence, for me, I try to confront them like in a more aggressive way the older I got, and it's the same conversation of trying to punch that firewall but never getting through and getting hurt. And just it's really true that we feel like it's our problem.
Yeah, and in my case, in the code, they will blame you. They will tell you like something like, oh, you're feeling sad, it's because of your sins. And you're like, damn it, I didn't even know that I was committing sin. What am I doing wrong? You know what I mean? And no clear, like in the case of the code, right? And this is due by purpose. No clear vision about what the religion is, what the code is. Everything is about worshipping the guy that created the code, and they make him like he was a prophet, like he was a saint. They like Christ is here, but he's slightly, almost there, Yeah,
it's the point of religious manipulation. It's the exploitation of your faith in God. That is something good. They use your moral compass to, like a God complex. Try to explain what, in your experience, that is like.
Like, for me, like they associate themselves with God. They say that God sent them. This is the first thing. And after saying that, they put you in a really hard position, because they tell you to do whatever they want. Because who are you to go against God, right? Because God told me to come here. God is telling you to not commit sin. And they sometimes don't tell you how to get out of it. So this creates a loop. You get in despair because you don't know how to improve. And the only people that you trust is them, and you need to, if you have your sins, your problems, it's because you're not going to the code enough, or it's because you have different ideas, it's because of your ideas. They explicitly tell you that everything is just an experience. If you don't understand, if you don't get it, it's because you didn't have the experience yet, and it's all about worshipping the people, like the narcissist that is in charge. Usually, because this cult that I'm talking about, they're quite big. They have in different countries. Usually, it's the local one. There's always one that you need to be kind of like obeying him. You know, they talk a lot about obedience, and the guy likes it. He likes that sensation of power. He really likes it. It's not something, you know. And you try to confront him. He will try to use your triggers, and he will manipulate the social vision that people has about you. And suddenly, when you see yourself excluded from everything, like people that were with you since you were born, that you consider aunties, you know, that you are close to them, like this, they vanish just because the guy is, you know, you need to worship his.
Yeah, I feel like this phenomenon of a cult is so bizarre because any rational being that is not born into this will realize immediately there's just normal people will just see through this and not be a part of it. So why don't you get out of this abusive relationship? But it's like, the dream job of a narcissist is, let me just ask you, what is the dream job of a narcissist?
That you come to inside of his delusion. So he doesn't live in reality.
I mean, occupation wise, what would be a job in reality that a narcissist would love?
To be a leader.
Exactly, a spiritual leader.
Yeah, could be spiritual leader.
Yeah, because the God complex thing, it's so perfectly aligned with what they want, because to have this amount of power and have others obey you, like whatever you described just now, is so fitting that it's just, I don't understand how people with faith, with religion, would go trust a spiritual leader such as a priest to guide them or follow whatever they say to the extreme that it becomes a cult. Like there's just no amount of rationality in this group. It's just, I don't understand how people could give so much power to narcissists, because this spiritual cult leader, he has to feed on some sort of people giving him this. Otherwise, if everybody goes or everybody sees through these tactics, sooner or later, it will just falter. But I don't know how they consistently keep this going.
Man, because the thing is not about, usually people that enter in codes are not people that are doing well in life. They can be extremely smart, extremely rational, but it's about the heart. You know, narcissists, they kind of sense your coping mechanisms and they use that against you. You know, and they use techniques like gaslighting or trying to make you doubt about your memory, or putting things from a long time ago and putting against you, or exposing intimate things or mistakes that you committed in the past and try to destroy your reputation. You know, so it's more about, you know, like most people don't have the psychological tools to get, you know, free from narcissists. And like I would say, like narcissists are everywhere, and churches are not free from it. I think the worst scenarios that you can find in churches, because I'm still Catholic, right? I would say Protestant churches are the worst, because anyone could literally open their garage and say that I had a sign of God, please come here. You know, see, this is what I believe, you know. Yeah.
You mentioned, sorry.
In the case of Catholicism, you have limitations on them. It's not like I want to do whatever I want and they can do it, you know.
Right.
It's, you have limitations and you have an old system that you can break their kneecaps.
So it's the feature of that specific religion.
Yeah, it's the feature of Catholicism. The cult that I was in, they were quite Protestants in many ways, and yeah, they try to find broken people. Really, they really try to.
I want to share experience with my family that you mentioned the word dependency. So people that has a sort of vulnerability are susceptible to the manipulation. So it's like a prey and predator dynamic,
yes,
where it's not the entire fault of the predator. It's the the neediness of the prey for someone that cares about them, that you trust them and share your personal details,
Exactly.
that they then use. You think they're using it as goodwill, but they use it against you. And my mother is someone who comes from an abusive family. So my grandfather, like my mother's father, would beat her, and my mother's mother would just take it, and she would also take the beatings. Like my grandmother was also abused by my grandfather, and the whole family was abused by my grandfather. And this dynamic created a sort of, it's okay to be abused. Like this is normal. Like
Okay.
they normalize the trauma. And my father is, you could say it's unlucky that my father and mother met, because my mother being susceptible and vulnerable to this type of attachment style, like attachment is about the love you accept. The love you think you accept is related to your self-esteem. If you have a low self-esteem, you don't accept pure, true, healthy love. You're accustomed to toxicity, so you find someone that makes you feel bad about yourself. That is the sort of up-down love.
Oh, okay. I never thought about that. Okay.
Yeah, so as long as someone seems to be perfect and makes you feel beneath them, you have a crush on them, because this is the attachment style of that your parents gave to you. You learn this type of, yeah. Back to the point of how my father met my mother and started to exploit her because he knew she was soft and nurturing, and he used her as a parasite. He was a parasite and used her as sort of sucking on her resources, her emotional care. And she was okay with this because she was not aware. She was born into this. And so this continued for so many years that, yeah, it's about the dependency that these people attract each other.
Yeah.
And just, even if my father did not meet my mother, he would eventually find someone else similar.
But don't you think that your mom maybe also? Because I used to say, like, some people like to give orders and some people like to obey. Some people, some people like to be grandiose and some people like to be there, admire their grandiosity, right?
Right.
And this childhood, these patterns that we create when we are children, they contribute a lot on the person that we will meet in future. And like you said, it's really hard to find a healthy, even if you find a healthy relationship, it will not make you feel alive. Like something is odd.
Something really profound occurred to me. So first of all, somebody wants to use you, somebody wants to be used by you. Second of all is the dynamic of finding a God, wanting to have a father figure that loves you unconditionally because you were never loved. You project that need onto a person.
Yeah.
And that, like my mother's case, she wants my dad to have this God complex. She wants and is attracted to him because he shows signs of narcissism, because it's fake competence. Narcissistic people are not actually competent. They put a facade that makes you feel that you can trust them. And so it's a lie. It's a co-delusion. There's this Joker sequel. The second sequel to the first Joker movie is called The Folie de Lux, something like that. It means co-delusion. Like two people in psychosis. It's not just one person that allows this cycle to perpetuate. It's two people. It takes two. The obey and someone that wants to obey. It's so sick. It's so sick.
And they feed each other, right? Like they feed each other's delusion, like, so when your dad is doubting about himself, no, but you are really the one chosen by God. Or something. And then he's like, okay, if my wife is saying this, I must be right. Like, yeah.
That happened to me exactly. Like my mom would support my dad's delusions of fantasy. So sorry to
no, say. No, yeah. I was just making a comment.
Yeah, my dad was he thought he was called by God. And there's this idea in Christianity where through a Bible verse, you could be summoned to do great things. And my mom also interpreted subjectively, had vivid experiences and dreams related to this. And they both got into this idea that it is true. And over the years, decades, my mom would support him. My dad would not have a job and just stay in China and wait for God to send him opportunities to preach. But it was all a lie, and I've gone into so much detail in this in my autobiography, so I'm not going to repeat here. But it is that, as you said, the support that continues to fuel this delusion, co-delusion.
Yeah, okay. Man, that's rough. It happens a lot in the code too. So it's the same thing about the leaders, right? They might doubt about themselves sometimes, but when they see the people listening to them, and after they give the speech and everyone's like, yeah, life should be this way. Yeah, the thing is to stay here. Everyone that is outside is missing out. We have the answer, the existential answer for every single thing. I mean, who doesn't want that? You know?
I think it's... Sorry, can I interrupt?
No. Go.
It's so similar, the dynamic of faith with the dynamic of dependent people on narcissists. So you want God to be true. God, if you believe in him, is impervious to any rational or judgment of him. Like, even if your son dies, you'll say it's God's plan. And this kind of behavior, justifying whatever you want to be true, like a confirmation bias, is the same as the dependent people feeding their cult leader. Even if they suspect their cult leader is crazy, they still justify and speak for him. It's the same dynamic.
Yeah, it's the same dynamic. And the thing is, kind of like, I think what people are that are broken usually too, what they're trying to find is a simple answer for their pain. Mm-hmm. You know, part of my journey, and I still in church, is that I started to realize that even though you take a God vision, worldview, it's still, the answer is still not as simple as it look like. You know, and it's never that simple. Like, problems that you had for years and years, you will not solve it just by entering in a place. And I'm to tell you, any serious, a Catholic will say that, serious, I'm not talking about the delusional ones, okay? Or the simple-minded people. But what I'm just saying is, like, these quotes, they come as an answer. You know, like, just to stay here. And they give you a sense of belonging. They give you a sense of belonging. And you feel like they love bomb you when you enter. You know? Like, they give a huge sense of community, huge sense of existential mission. But it's all a narcissistic delusion. You know, and the main goal of the code is always bringing more people because you want to save more people. You know, and it's really interesting because this specific code that I'm talking about is inside of the Catholic Church. Is one of the they call it movements, but the only reason they are able to survive is because they don't make much noise. They try to be on their own. If the bishops, they knew what happens inside, I believe that many of them will kick out. It happened many times. It happened in the Philippines. It happened in Japan. Once they knew what was happening inside, they kicked them out. And the thing is, like, because they are there, even though they are inside the Catholic Church, they will say that they have the salvation, and people that are inside the church are missing out too. So, kind of like you're in the same, theoretically, you're in the same religion, but you're not really, because you're missing out because you're not in a specific part of us, you know? Mm-hmm. And you need to be there. The reason why we go there is to feed the narcissistic mission of the leader. And the more people they have, the more realistic the delusion becomes. So you're talking about your dad. Imagine if your dad met some people, you know, and he suddenly opened his church. It will look more real to him though, isn't it? Like,
that was his plan too.
Yeah, exactly. So some narcissists, that worked, you know, like, because you try so many times that the delusion starts to become reality. It's kind of like you're forcing it. You know?
It's their identity. They identify themselves as God, and others think that although he might be a servant of God, and he very trickily says, "Oh, I am beneath God, and I am doing His work, and I can recite these doctrines and morals," but he doesn't actually have the fruits, and secretly himself he thinks he is God. He can't tell the difference. And you said the more people buy into this, the harder it is to question whether am I the problem, or how come so many people buy into
exactly.
this. That's one of the religious, it's called CRED, a cred. It's like I learned this from my psychology of religion class back in UMac, and it's called a cred. Like, there are many things that religion uses to persuade people to join. And you talked about the reason of people going to religion is because they're broken, and I think
not religion, to codes.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, codes are not really religion. You know, to codes is because they are broken. Many people go to religion also because they are broken or someone helped them, and etc. But there is a fundamental difference. For Protestants, it's totally freestyle. You have a book, I interpreted the book how I am, and if people buy it, that's it, man.
Right.
I don't need to prove it philosophically. I don't need to argue. It's me. I am the one that God enlightened me. Who are you to doubt about
It's
it?
Power play.
Yeah, it's power play. Yeah.
First of all, they're broken. They want love. They believe that they have a moral argument of we're all sinners and we must forgive. They love the first cause argument of who created the universe. Like, there has to be a creator, and they don't believe in evolution. They're usually not that educated and rational when it comes to belief. They think it's if I have to prove it, it's not belief. It's I have an intuition. It's my gut. I believe in love, and Jesus is love, so I buy into that no matter the consequences. And this might feel like a judgment to believers, and I once was a believer, and so I went through the whole skepticism and figuring out my stages of religious development. But I'm not trying to offend people. It's just these characteristics that I observe.
You're being honest.
Yeah. The consequences of leaving cult is leaving everything that felt safe to you. But it's like, you have to leave because there's something fundamentally wrong.
Maybe I'm a person that have a lot of reasons to leave the Catholic Church. If we talk about groups, one of the worst people that I met was from this code. In my life, the guy destroyed my life, in like this, But the best people that I met also were from the Catholic Church. So it's really, I just don't like to, and I know that many people that are in religion, they pass this image of being morally better than others. But what I would say is, delusional people you have everywhere. Superstitious people you also have in different places too. You have pretty superstitious atheists and people that don't care about life at all. You also have in both sides, right? The thing is, when we talk about religion, we need to talk about the examples, the hugest examples of one religion. And Protestantism doesn't have many. They just have, in my opinion, they just have delusion. Most of it is delusion or philosophical delusion most of the time. Yeah.
I have many things to say. So
okay, say.
Okay. So there are lots of psychological biases that makes us susceptible to being religious. So I studied this from the course. But I want to go back eventually to the narcissistic part, since we went on a tangent to religion. And superstition is like a coping mechanism. So when you can't control a lot of things, your locus of control shrinks too. So much suffering is in this world. There must be a justification, and I want to be the controller of my life. So I believe someone is behind my back, pushing me, and has a story perfectly written for me. It's just coping with what you cannot accept as malevolence or just bad luck. Superstition as a psychological fundamental that manifests other religious development, I think it just roots from a sense of control and maybe a little bit of terror management, like the fear of death, not accepting that life is a one-shot game. They want eternal life, they want reassurance of mortality, or they don't want to lose their loved ones, they want to see them in heaven, they fear going to hell.
I'll say one of the most sophisticated types of manipulation is a spiritual manipulation, because you can speak really broadly about it. You just think like, I can use in any excuse, I can just say God told me, I'm an angel, prophet Isaiah said this and that, so you must, and of course it's one of the most, I would say it's one of the most sophisticated ways to control people too, to make them have fear, am I going against God? Because this guy, and like I was saying, most of the people don't have the psychological tools or the tools to go around manipulation.
But for the normal person, they also use religion in a narcissistic way. They would say, because I believe this, I will enforce my worldview on you, and if you don't follow I think you're a sinner, like I'm labeling you, I'm judging you from a superior standpoint. Any religious person that tries to preach you feel that they are speaking from a superior standpoint, and that I feel is, I wouldn't say it's narcissistic, but it's another topic for another day. But it's also disgusting to me.
It is bad. I do agree. I do agree with you. But the things like when we take a religion serious, we cannot take for the most people, because usually, really often, the most people are committing the most mistakes. The crowd is, usually are the people that need to meditate and etc. You need to take from the examples, like who are the role models, of this religion. So like for Islam will be Muhammad, for Buddhism will be Buddha, for Catholicism will be Christ. And not just that, the saints, and what they say about that. They wouldn't tell you, you're a sinner and etc. I am a sinner. We are a sinner, man. Like, we're in the same boat. You get what I mean? The only difference between me and you is that I didn't have the opportunity to commit the mistakes that you had. You get what I mean? When you look to the saints, sometimes, of course, you have different types of saints that lived in different history contexts, of course, and they had their limitations too. But when you look to the saints and what they think, you will say that is way more reasonable, and usually people are not following that, and usually that's the problem. And these saints were persecuted too because of that,
I agree that we must look to the philosophers and great examples, role models, saints of the past to learn from their wisdom. But I disagree on the part where we give so much power to a person. Just because they are religious, it automatically gives them their interpretation of their lifestyle, and people that wants to learn from them, it's kind of worshipping
a person.
And it's this, even since I'm not a Christian anymore, and I don't believe in the idea of believing in a all-powerful, all-loving God, I automatically do not like people that show characteristics that they believe in all-powerful, all-being God, but they are trying to force it on me as well. Like the way they speak, it's not just talking about their experience. There is this element of judgment there.
Okay, of judgment. I mean,
Do you mind if we try to go back to the
narcissistic? Otherwise, we'll get to religion. Another day. Yeah.
So, do you have questions for me or related to like our own each other's experience of our own narcissistic traits?
Which was the hardest narcissistic trait for you to tackle? Once you knew and you were conscious that this has impact on you too, what was the hardest one?
The temptation of voluntarily choosing to be one. Because if we look at it from a moral standpoint, there's good and bad. And narcissistic behavior is the extremely selfish, short-sighted, immature way of exploiting others for your own good. And I fear that for me, that temptation of staying this way because I have the ability to manipulate others, the temptation of power, I fear I might not be able to battle it. I feel like if life serves me a very big bowl of shit salad, like if my parents die and I fail, I lose my leg, something like that, I will turn towards the devil and say that I lost my faith in the good, and if someone betrays me, the people I love the most, I believe I could descend in the worst case scenario into embracing the spirit that is evil and allow it to possess me. I think Jordan Peterson talks about evil being the desires you know they exist, and you allow it to manifest and you allow it to grow and take your whole thing. With a specific example is like I've seen myself done harmful things to people in my previous intimate relationship. I felt like I ended it in a very selfish manner, immature. I did not think I was capable of being disloyal or not the best, not the most mature man, but I fear that this would follow me for the rest of my life, that I will not be able to cut it off permanently. It's like a constant battle of not allowing my immature voice to win. That is my biggest fear of this.
Okay. It's really interesting because, but you can apply this example in general. I think everyone has a shadow. But my selfish impulses, and they were freaking selfish. I don't have another word to describe it. Freaking selfish. I didn't have a reason to fight against them. And I'm not talking about just about hell, you know? Because someone that believes in God, if he's willing to go to hell, he also can commit mistakes, you know? Like if I today was like, okay, I just want to go to hell as Solomon, so I will mess up your life. I don't care anymore. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, we have this freedom. But this evil part of me, this predatory part that makes me understand the predatory mind, it's the daily fight too, I would say. Nowadays have been way better. I think empathy helps a lot with it, but it still is a long process. It's a long process of healing.
Do you mind sharing an example of why you would label yourself as very selfish?
I don't think that you won't be able to post the video after. I'm not talking about usually
Is
Christian
it something
stuff.
fundamentally evil?
Yeah, fundamentally evil. And I was really aware that more than just hell or heaven, if God doesn't exist, there is no reason for me to. There's no real right and wrong. You know, even though reality has a pattern, I have a pattern too. But in the end of the day, I choose whether I want or not to do it. So in the end of the day, I say, you know.
Let me see if I understand you well. You saw God as a moral lawgiver that grounds your moral frame.
No, it's there. I didn't have a reason to be good. It's not to, like most Christians will have like a reason to not go to hell.
Right.
But for me, it's always like a reason to be good. Because I would die anyway, I would disappear anyway. And even though the so-called good that you're telling me, it's a long-term investment and I cannot see it now. Okay?
What is the difference between your own conscience and God's impact on your morality?
I believe that the conscience is the voice of God in us. This is the first thing. I didn't know that, but there are many authors that refer to conscience. Not even Christians, some philosophers too. The only problem with conscience without being guided by reason is that we all, although we have these strong impulses towards evil sometimes, these selfish desires, we all have these small things that we don't pay attention to the details, and they are bad too. You know?
My question was like,
So being guided just purely by that, you will feel differently towards a different situation, you know?
So there's a difference between a normal person's conscience and God's type of conscience?
I would say that the conscience needs to be educated.
Right.
Yeah, but doesn't necessarily you need to believe in God to have this opinion. Like you have authors like Confucius, for example. You know, all his philosophy is about that. You know, and Aristotle's also, Plato, Socrates, and they do not necessarily believe in a God.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or Buddha.
When I learn about Machiavellism, I know I have the capabilities, the strategies, the manipulation tactics to be one of these people. When we talk about sadism, I do find myself enjoying, especially in online games, when I see my opponents suffer and I beat the shit out of them. I find pleasure in others' pain.
But you found a good way to put this in games.
When you talk about psychopathy, whenever I watch a true crime, like Jeffrey Dahmer or just the worst of the worst psychopaths movies, I find a certain attraction to not just their psychological phenomenon, like how does this mind work, like criminology in general, but also a self-reflection of, am I capable of doing that? Is there the evil in me, given the right circumstance, to do like Squid Game behavior, like murder, lie, just to... I feel like this is a man thing. Like women, when you ask them, do you feel like you have a dark side? They say no. But men, we all know that since there's a predatory instinct in us, we can kill and we want to kill.
But women has to. They just silence that voice in them.
It's more manipulative and passive aggressive, right?
Not just that. I don't know if you have this, like, I talk with many girls and sometimes they could swear to you that they don't have this kind of stuff. Like, no, it's so pure, love and all this stuff. But when you get more intimate with them, you will see some of these traits on them. The problem is that when these traits pop up, they just, no, I cannot look there. Mm-hmm. You get what I mean? It usually is like that, and that's the problem sometimes with girls, to not be naive. Because men's is kind of like we grow up, we are conscious of that shit. Like I can cause harm on people, and you can see in other men like they can really mess up with me. You get what I mean?
Yeah, it's like a survival thing to.
Also, the way that we are educated to is different, right? Like,
I think it's like a masculine thing to be okay with violence and to cultivate that protectiveness. Since it's a double-edged sword, you can use it to harm or protect. And to be dangerous, you have to, it's that saying of the gardener in the, rather be a warrior in the garden than the gardener in the war. So we have to be dangerous, but we have to use it, we have to control it. And I think that's the beauty of our duty as men, to be able to kill, but to use it to protect instead of harm. And part of narcissism is that they use their skills, their charm, their intelligence in the wrong way to self-serve. I reflect and I see if I'm capable of that evil. And that is related to my fear of being a narcissist, is that I might be capable of doing these things. Like I'm scared of myself, a part of my shadow that...
and that's how manipulative people do, right? Mm. They create a situation for you that from outside it looks like was your fault. It looks like it was consensual. It looks like that you were wanting to, but from inside, if you pay attention to the details, like, oh, this didn't happen by chance. It was all calculated. Yeah.
This lack of empathy thing, I think,
is the core.
Everybody has lack of empathy. Like we don't have the capacity to care about everyone's feelings, but the lack is like, I know you are suffering, but I don't give a shit. It's like, it's one thing to say, I choose to not care, but I have the capacity to care. But the psychopath is like, I don't want to care. Even if I try, I can only mimic what others how they care. I do worry that even as a counselor sometimes, when I see someone suffering, I just don't have the capacity to empathize. And I'm not sure if it's the former, where I'm burnt out emotionally, or it's the latter, the worst type is that I just don't care about you and I'm here to just get your money and leave. I'm not sure if, yeah.
I feel like it's both. Why not both? Maybe you care, like you cognitively care, definitely, because otherwise you wouldn't be there. I believe that no one chooses to be a counselor because they have to say that, oh, I will make tons of money doing counseling. It's one of those professions that takes a lot of time to get some money out of it. And usually when you get good money out of it is up later in your career when you have a lot of experience and you can communicate that experience to others, right? So maybe it could be both. And at least in my case, it was both, you know. I think we create empathy by being conscious of our own limitations too, by being conscious of our own pains. When they embrace it, when you embrace just one inclination that you have, just one impulse, it means that you will not care about any other characteristics that you have, you know. So the thing is, like, you start to believe that you start to not pay attention actually to your pains, your inner pains. And by knowing our pain, we can sympathize with the other. Mm-hmm. Of course, like I said last time in class, in the beginning of my healing process, I thought that I need to help every single person. And when I saw someone suffering, I wanted to help everyone. But the problem is that sometimes we are in an ocean, everyone is sinking, drowning, and we need to help ourselves and teach people how to swim, so they can teach other people to swim. So I believe that it might be a more reasonable solution.
I'm not sure if they actually don't see their problem or they choose to not see it. That's the mystery with them, that because they don't have empathy like a normal person, they can't feel others' pain as if it were their own pain. I don't know, is it like a physiological thing that their brain does not compute mentalizing of others' perspective? Or is that they embrace it, they don't care, and they think they're superior so that their view matters more and they have the final say? And it's definitely frustrating because you operate on the consensus that this is a normal human being capable of reasonable, reciprocal communication, but whenever you deal with them, it's always there. It makes you feel 中文就係內耗啦, but I don't know the English.
We're talking about the mystery, right? Like, it's a mystery to me too, because I had clients that it was possible, like she were able to manage the situation to go back and talk with her mom, you know, and her mom started, from what I know, her mom started to do therapy, you know. And as again, same background, like I think Protestants church are really a fertile place for that. They were Protestant too, you know, and somehow her mom wanted to change. Like psychopathy, there are people that believe that you're born, it's like a brain like didn't develop, you know, that your brain, like the emotion part, the empathy part didn't develop well. But narcissism, from what I know, it's more the social that influence, because they see the line, you know, like narcissistic parents usually has narcissistic kids, and I was seeing that on myself. Like when I started with my girlfriend, I wanted her to join my delusion. You know, yeah.
You said how narcissistic parents could influence you to also be narcissistic. I think it's like a survival mechanism. The children don't get to choose; they model their parents, and also to combat. I believe you have a lot to say on this because you have so much experience in like navigating their tricks and using their tricks against them, not falling for their traps. You know they are not deliberately rage baiting you, but what they're doing is baiting you to buy into their trap. And I'm not sure if they're deliberately using this manipulation tactic, or is that the only way they know how to communicate? The other thing is using empathy as manipulation. So in your counseling practice, I'm sure you had instances where you have a directive. You want to direct them in a certain direction because you think what is best for them. And so you use empathy as a tool to gain their rapport, and then you kind of nudge them towards what you think is best for them. And sometimes we are self-centered and we think what's best for them is not actually what they want for themselves. And so I worry that I might use empathy the wrong way to manipulate others. So in our conversation, sometimes I'm aware that I ask you questions and I agree with what you say, I lure you into this thing, and then I gain as much information, and then I snap your weaknesses.
To guide a conversation towards where you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely though, like usually when our heart is dual, you know? It has good inclinations, good intentions, and bad intentions. And sometimes like it starts with a good inclination, but the bad inclinations get mixed with it. The thing about my sessions, like with my clients, right? I never, although I think different, and of course, for me, world visions is also about mental health. Sometimes having a really, really wrong world visions has, you know, huge impacts on the way that people live and mental health problems. Although I am conscious of that, I always respect the people's will, you know, always. And I have clients of mine that, in my opinion, they have delusional work. There's a difference between persuasion and manipulation. Manipulation, you eat the other person's will. You're creating this, like I was saying, you're creating the situation so the person cannot say no. You know, that's what Machiavellians, psychopaths, they will just step on you and don't care at all. But Machiavellians and narcissists would do. But persuasion will be more, I will show you how great this is, and look, this is amazing, but who will make the final decision is you. And this is hard though. This is hard.
Very nicely said. The allowing others to say yes or no thing, it's like using guilt, right? You frame it as, if you say no, I become the victim. And my dad is so good at using this emotional volatility thing. So 1 second he would break down, oh, you don't care about me if you... Yeah. But I know that if, like he switches from emotional to rational so quick that you could see there's something wrong with his brain. And I think it's the core of their insecurity that manifests its narcissism, because they need to stroke their ego because they have been hurt so bad before that they fundamentally do not accept themselves. So they create a version opposite of that as a defense. That is just a theory, but from what I observed from his emotional breakdowns and using emotions wrong way, do you have an experience with that?
Yeah. Definitely, like in the code, when you put the person on the corner, like you know me, I'm really rational. I try to verbalize everything in detail, and I usually, when I'm talking with people, I'm seeing the thing, you know. So I put the person in the corner, and sometimes when you put narcissists on the corner, if they don't have power, they will start to cry and say, "No, how you can say that?" If it's a mom, they will say, "Oh, how you can say that to me? I feel like the worst mom in the world." You know, and how you can tell me that I cooked for you. You know, this is, you know, on Christmas, and it's, but never addressing the real problem. Never addressing the real problem. And like you said, they switch really quick because they don't have empathy. So they're not crying out of what they did. It's just they want you to stop because you're breaking the image that the illusion that they constructed, you know.
It's so fascinating though. Like once their defense mechanism is so well trained, it's not like they intentionally use these or learn these things. They just come naturally, and it's so hard to deal with them, to point out like you're being an immature asshole, like you know you're wrong, and you're using this guilt trip to deflect the topic and just to confront them. And you want a reaction. You want them to say sorry and acknowledge the fairness, the injustice they're causing, but they never do that. And so whenever you try to communicate, it's always futile, and it's so many years pent up, this not being able to confront them, that you blame yourself. And we need to upgrade our game to be more hypervigilant, rational, to attack them. To deal with narcissists, you have to adopt some tricks of manipulation
in order to it's part of being good, right? Integrating evil in your personality, right? On that time, he destroyed every single relationship of mine by that kind of gossiping. There were people in the code that they're like my aunties, really, and he destroyed that, and he told that even to my parents, and my parents believed on that, And when you confront him, he kind of like changed the conversation. I went one day to talk with him before leaving. I told him, "Dude, I feel like you have something against me." So the guy was talking in front of everyone about me in the homeless. He was destroying my reputation, talking behind my back, and I went to flipping everything. And then I talked to him like, he's like, no, for me, no, I have something against you. No, it's something from your mind.
I'm so sorry to hear that. He destroyed your relationships. And made you feel your parents believe in him more than your parents trust you.
It was when you speak, I'm speaking excited about it because I'm glad that this year of 2025 was a huge year of recovery, because leaving the code was quite traumatic. I realized this in the end of this year. So this year was all about getting better, and I'm glad that I can name what he did. I can name the code, why I think it's a code, and how I can say, and I'm also detached from that, because there is an interesting characteristic in people that left codes. They make their life meaning to go against the code. So instead of dedicating their life to the code, they dedicate their life to destroying the code. I'm turning the page of my life, and I'm really glad for that. Thank God. Yeah.
I think this conversation is therapeutic for both of us, because we are, like you said, going against the cult. Like we have awareness now. We were not aware before, and there was a point in our life. For me, it's 2 years ago as well, where I know this is kind of narcissistic behavior. It's the first time I've ever heard of NPD, and I reflect back on how accurate this diagnosis is, on how people use religion and these tactics. And so now we're just spreading awareness on my question to you is, like, do you think we can actually change a narcissist?
This is the thing. I like to believe that I was a narcissist too, until I was 21. I get the best grades I do charity just to others think about me. Even with my girlfriend, the way that I speak, I was like, see how great I am with these ideas. And I like to think that yes, it's whether they embrace it or not.
Yeah, I think for my dad, although he's so many years deep into this disorder, he's so into his delusion, there's no way he separates his identity. It's like multiple personalities, or you can't force the person to split his personality back into the normal, healthy one. So I feel like I've tried to help my dad so many years, confronting him. And for me, I believe that he could change. And he also, it's like someone pretending to sleep. You could not wake them up. If they are aware of it and they apologize, he said the cult leader never said sorry. They might say sorry, but they know they can promise something but not change. Once they promise you and you back down, they don't have to change, right? It's a lie. And they know they're lying to themselves. And they give you the impression that they don't know that they're lying to themselves. But I believe it's a choice thing. They are still embracing it. Their core trick is thinking, I'm a victim always. Even my narcissism I'm a victim. Like, I can't change it. I never heard like a true narcissist go into therapy because they don't think they have any problems. They don't need
Or
help.
sometimes they don't believe in therapy. Like they don't believe in psychology. It's always that question towards which direction you are pointing your life.
At some point in my life, I no longer took on the role to change my dad. He's my family and my father always. And my mother also wants to change him. But we got to the point where we know that as long as we try to change him, we're feeding into the trap of we need to know that I don't give a shit whether he's aware or not. That is the distinction we did not come out of. We were trying to figure out whether my dad knew he had this problem. It was an awareness thing. But the actions is the actual important thing. I don't give a shit whether or not you want to heal or what. That's all awareness thing. I care about your actions and accountability. I believe you are responsible and are dutiful and morally obligated to be a protector of this family, to be a good father. And if your actions don't do that, then fuck off. I know I did harm in the past and I have the chance to choose not to do that again. That is learning, and they don't grow up. Narcissists don't grow up, they don't learn. Have you heard of the term, so you know about Carl Jung's archetypes, and there's one called eternal child.
I never heard about this one. I'm not really familiar with Carl Jung, but if you can explain.
So if you've heard of the wise old man, the sage, the opposite of that is the eternal boy, is the psychological trait that all of us have in us, that is the baby. So the most powerful person is the baby because he is the most powerless. And so everybody has to care for him whenever he cries. He has no fault. He's purely innocent. So everybody is responsible
For him.
Yes. So if you extend that, so there's maturity from baby to maturity. If you stay in this adolescence, baby, childlike state forever, you actually have a lot of power. Because if you don't grow up, others will have to serve you. You won't have to serve others. And this is a fundamental thing related to narcissism, is that this fantasy of them, of sucking on the tits of people that gives them, the parasite element, is that as long as they use their it's all your fault, this victim mentality of a baby, like crying like a baby, they know this will gain others' care and sympathy. So it's kind of like abusing and exploiting this state of child, of the innocent one. But they're no longer innocent. It's like 膈應. They should be grown up. They're 50 years old, and it's no longer, people no longer have empathy for this because you, by a moral standard, should be giving back to society instead of taking. Because my mother is also one that supports me a lot, too much. It's like the devouring mother that loves their child so much
that
they don't give the right amount of responsibility. Like, I don't have to get a job, I can live off my parents, that type of boy that lives in the basement. So I feel like it's related to narcissism because they learn that as long as they don't have to grow up and take on any responsibility, they are kind of immune to criticism.
Yeah, like they are in pain already, so how can I criticize them, right?
Yeah.
They're feeling so bad already. If I tell them, I mean,
they use the empathy of others and they don't have empathy themselves.
Narcissistic parents, family dynamics. I was considered the hero child, you know? So, especially when I start becoming, older in the code, they always ask me, oh, what should we do, and etc. And in many dynamics, when you leave the narcissistic parent, they feel the emptiness because they cannot press the buttons anymore. You start to do your own thing, and you just don't care, like you were saying, because they're a parasite. So when you choose to take them out and just put them on the table and leave, they're just there. And I think maybe that's the best sometimes, I think it's a healthy pain. It's a necessary pain for them to, wake up, hey, you need to do something different, right?
And then after my parents divorced, the way I communicate with my mom sometimes resonates with how my dad talks with my mom. So I assume the role of his power, or I'm the man of the family, so I get to order my mom to do things for me. And this dynamic shifts from my parents to me and my mother's relationship. So the mother and son relationship is related to how this narcissism manifests. And that happens to me as well. I feel like I'm being spoiled.
Some people also wants to do, and other people wants them, other people to do for them, you know. And breaking the pattern, it is uncomfortable because it's a pattern of a lifetime. So like first 10 years of your life, mom was there and doing all this kind of stuff. But freedom is better. So one way that they control my missionary family is by talking with my dad and listening to my dad and giving my dad, you know, and blackmailing my dad. Oh, if you guys don't, if he doesn't change, I might send you guys back to Brazil. And they did that though. They did to some of my friends.
Religion is just a path that their individual's problems manifested. But people think to debate the religion is the key theme. Like for them also, it was the religion being the right or wrong, the debates about doctrines. But as a psychologist and an observer, I see clearly that it's about their individual psychological problems. You know, I think for the both of us, we took on this role from a very young age of being forced to mature because of the craziness and chaos around us. That even today we choose our path to be a counselor as our vocation to help people is because we needed the help that was not given to us, and we feel the need to not let this happen again. This is a nightmare disaster that we feel obliged to warn others about. And deeply, I feel like it's like the wounded healer archetype, where it's still a battle, right? We still have the remains of the traumas and we're still trying to reflect, and it impacts us in so many ways we don't know. But we're having this conversation and we're having this meaningful self-disclosure and understanding your perspective and your experience is really also, it's like a very rare case someone speaks your mind, like we're thinking the same thing, and your experiences, like knowing someone also has gone through it is like therapeutic in itself. Know you're not alone.